What is up, guys? Welcome into episode number 93 of the Lou Sports Talk podcast, and a happy new year to you all. The first episode of 2026, whether you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you are watching on STL Sports Central's YouTube, we appreciate you being a part of the Lou Sports Talk podcast, where all of the content on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm your host, Ethan Hannaford. Tonight, Dylan and Daniel unable to make it, but no fear, because one of our favorite guests is going to be joining me here in just a couple of minutes. And it's a very fitting time because Kareem Haq, who is the host of the Birds on the Farm podcast, his area of expertise is the Cardinals farm system, the youth of the St. Louis Cardinals organization. And it is a time where St. Louis fans are preparing for a season where you're going to be seeing a lot of new faces. You're going to be seeing a lot of young St. Louis Cardinals jumping into the picture. We've already seen a couple of pieces acquired via the trade market. We saw them sign Dustin May, a new starting pitcher that will be joining the rotation here in the spring. And there's going to be more trades. There's going to be more things that will be occurring. So we thought it would be the perfect time to have Kareem join us, give us some thoughts, some takes on what exactly things could look like both in the minor leagues and at the major league level for some of the youngsters of the Cardinals organization and what we could be seeing. So without further ado, exploring the young St. Louis Cardinals of 2026. We are kicking off 2026. Kareem Haq joining us right here in just a moment on the Lou Sports Talk podcast. Welcome back to the Lou Sports Talk podcast on STL Sports Central, episode 93. Getting close. The countdown to 100 is getting near. And, I mentioned it just a couple of minutes ago. Kareem Haq joining us, now breaking the record. Most appearances by a guest on the Lou Sports Talk podcast. A round of applause to you, Kareem, and well-deserved, because we love the content that you bring. We love the different perspective, your expertise on the minor league system and what the Cardinals have. I'm not going to lie. It's a big year for you because you're going to have a lot of these guys that you've been covering the last couple of years. They're getting close to the major league level. Some of them are going to be hitting the major league level. And this is kind of what 2026 is meant to be, is a year where the Cardinals are rebuilding, and you're going to get a really good chance to see which of these young players are going to start. You're going to begin to have an idea of who's going to hit, who's going to be contributing for the future of the St. Louis Cardinals. How are you, my friend?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me on. This is definitely one of my favorite podcasts to be on. And just to set the record, I mean, you guys have had some really great guests on here. So I think that's a big deal for me. And really excited where the Cardinals are headed, this new direction, the emphasis on, player development. And we're seeing really the fruits to that labor already. This year, so many breakouts in the organization. We're going to talk about later. Guys like Joshua Baez, Raniel Rodriguez come to mind. Braden Davis in his first full season, former 5th round pick out of Oklahoma, had a dominant season, led the Cardinals minor leagues in strikeouts. It's just, there were a lot of encouraging signs in 2025. And as we head towards, what this organization is going to look like under Chaim Bloom in his first, year coming up, 2026 as the president of baseball operations, I'm just really excited. I like where the Cardinals are headed. And, it might be a couple years till we see this team back in playoff contention. But when they get to that spot, I feel like they're going to have a chance to compete more than just, sneak in the playoffs. Like, I think they're trying to build a contender, not a team that just sneaks in and we have to pray they win every series, a team that can legitimately be a threat in Major League Baseball. So really excited about that. The farm systems is headed in a great direction. I think they're a top 10 system in baseball right now, and they continue to climb up. Fangraphs had them ranked as, I think, the best farm system in baseball. I don't know if they're quite there just yet, but they're definitely creeping closer to the top, and that's great to see.
It certainly is, and there's no doubt that this is going to be a process. There's a high likelihood that this year is going to have some serious bumps at times, as it does when you are going through the process of rebuilding, when you're trading guys at the caliber in which Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras are, and are expected to. The same with Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan, perhaps Jojo Romero. There are going to be bumps in the road as a result, because these guys are going to be going through the same learning curves in which a lot of the guys we've seen simultaneously the last couple of years go through, and it hasn't been pretty for guys like Nolan Gorman, for Jordan Walker. Obviously, you're hoping that some of these guys are going to be able to hit. That's the right idea, right? Is if you can hit on a percentage, right, of these prospects in which you're bringing in, then you have set up a good core for yourself, and that's what we're seeing Chaim Bloom and company work to do right now, is build a strong and solid core in which eventually down the road, when they are ready to compete, they have the freedom, the liberty to be able to spend how they want, not because there is a lacking from the farm system, which is what we've seen these last several years. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about what the start of this rebuild has looked like. The Cardinals have made two trades up to this point, and I know some of these, Sonny Gray's been traded now for over a month. Wilson Contreras has been traded away for a couple of weeks now. There's been a lot of people out there that have covered this. I'm sure you have as well. So I just want to get an express thoughts, a grading as to what you liked about this, and as well what the guys that the Cardinals brought in, both the young minor leaguers and Brandon Clark and Yoker Fajardo, as well as these starting pitchers that are going to be potentially contributing to the Major League club, and Hunter Dobbins and Richard Fitts, bring to the table what you like, what you don't like about these two trades the Cardinals have made up to this point.
First off, these two trades were structured very similarly. You look at the Sonny Gray trade, getting back a Brandon Clark, a high upside left-handed pitcher. There is some volatility there, right? We haven't seen him, pitch a full season, in pro ball just yet. And there are some, command questions. He dealt with a blister issue last year, which, derailed his season. And hopefully, 2026 is a healthy year for Brandon Clark. And then, you get a piece like Richard Fitts, who can immediately maybe not step into your rotation, but at least provide depth, right? He's going to be competing for a spot in spring training with guys like Kyle Leahy, Andre Palante, and to add just another name to the mix, a guy that could potentially be a back of the rotation starter. It's nice to have that, because you'd much rather the Cardinals have a cost-controlled pitcher to fill the back end of the rotation than, what they've had to do, the past few years. You look at guys like Kyle Gibson, Miles Michaelis, Lance Lynn, like they've spent a lot of money on guys that aren't, threading the needle exactly, right, for the rotation. So to be able to get a guy like Richard Fitts to help the back end of that rotation, we'll see if he ends up cracking the rotation, or might be in AAA to start the year, might provide some depth in the bullpen, but just a flexible arm that if he does have an opportunity to start, I think we've already seen that at the major league level, for Boston. So I love how both of these deals are structured. And then you want to talk about the recent trade with Wilson Contreras. Hunter Dobbins is, the big league ready piece, the guy that is coming off a season where he pitched in the major leagues for Boston, and he had a productive year. Not a guy that's going to strike a ton of guys out, but much like a Hunter Dobbins, or much like a Richard Fitts, he's got a lot of pitches, right? He commands the ball well, and he has that back of the rotation kind of mold where you could see him thriving as, 4 or 5. And he really showed that when he pitched for Boston in 2025. So I think getting Hunter Dobbins back, I actually think Hunter Dobbins, assuming he's healthy, I think he will be in the rotation to start the year. He ended up missing the end of the season with he tore his ACL on a play to first base, but it seems like he's ramping back up and should be ready to go in spring training. So assuming he's healthy, considering how he pitched in 2025 at the major league level, starting for Boston, I think he'd be a name the Cardinals would have in that rotation. And, Yorker Fajardo, much like a Brandon Clark, I think he's a little bit more high variance pitcher, right? A guy that is only 20 years old, international free agent he was traded to Boston from another team. I can't remember exactly, but he's a guy that more of a lottery ticket piece, I would say, but is a fun arm considering the success he's had in the minor leagues at such a young age, right? And, commands the ball well. The stuff at the moment isn't anything crazy, but we're talking about a guy that is so young, still has some maturing to do, has a projectable frame that you could see him add a little bit of velocity. And then Blake Aida, the last piece in the Wilson Contreras trade, he's interesting too. Pitcher the Red Sox drafted out of Kennesaw State, spins the ball extremely well. Breaking ball, his sweeper really stands out to me, and is a pitch that I think could help him potentially land a role in the bullpen if he doesn't end up working out as a starter. I think the one glaring, I wouldn't even say it's an issue, but something that might stop him from being a higher kind of upside player is the velocity. He's in the lower 90s right now. The fastball isn't the best pitch in the world. But if he's able to get that closer to the mid 90s, if the Cardinals are able to add some velocity to a Blake Aida, I think he becomes a little bit more enticing, especially when he has that sweeper in the back pocket that is just going to fool hitters. So I thought both of these trades were, pretty good just from the outside looking in. Obviously, we have to see how these pitchers perform for the Cardinals. And I'm not ready to just give a grade. Like, I really want to see these guys in the Cardinals organization play before I have an opinion on that. But just from the outside looking in, I like what they did. I like the arms that they added. And the biggest thing that stood out to me was just the structure of these two deals. Very similar, getting guys that not only will help immediately, provide some depth at the back end of the rotation, but guys that you take a little bit more swings on further away, but have a little bit more upside, whether it's, Brandon Clark just having a ton of arm talent, nasty breaking ball, and then a Fajardo who is so young and is finding so much success already in the minor leagues.
It'll be interesting to see, like I said, we've seen two trades so far. It'll be interesting to see if upcoming trades that the Cardinals are to make, if we see a similar format, a similar style, or if we see them change things up depending on the player, depending on the offers. We'll be curious to keep an eye on that, and we'll get some thoughts on Brendan Donovan, what you're seeing for potential returns here a little bit later in the episode. But you mentioned that you believe that Hunter Dobbins is going to be a member of the 2026 Cardinals rotation. I believe that will probably be the case just based off of what we saw from him when healthy in 2025. Have to wait and see if he's going to be healthy. From everything I've seen, it's looking like he is on pace to where he's going to be good to go for the start of the spring, but we'll have to wait. So you do some quick counting up here and you have a little bit of an idea as to what a good chunk of the rotation is going to be, especially if you think that Dobbins is going to be in it. I think we can both agree that Matthew Liberatore and Dustin May will both be starting pitchers in 2026, as well as likely Michael McGreevy. All of a sudden, 4 of your 5 spots are filled out. And that's the great part, is that's what we're not really used to here in St. Louis the past couple of years, is we aren't really having to bridge together who are going to be these last couple pieces the Cardinals will have in the rotation. They have options for how they want to fill that final spot, and they also have that depth and the likely chance that someone or multiple pitchers will face injuries at some point in the year. Richard Fitz, Andre Palante, Quinn Matthews, even I would say maybe a little bit later in the year, and Kyle Leahy as well, the relief pitcher who had a very strong 2025 season out of the bullpen and is going to get an opportunity at the start of the spring to start some games. So let's talk about this fifth spot in the rotation. Who intrigues you for this spot? And you can give a prediction if you want to. You can give a little more of a politician's answer if you prefer that. But who do you like potentially as of now, knowing that things could change by the start of spring? Cardinals could bring in more pieces as an option. They could, who knows what happens come spring training. But as of now, who intrigues you for that number 5 spot the most?
Before getting into the 5 spot, you said it, but I think there are 3 locks with Dustin May, Matthew Liberatore, Michael McGreevy. I don't think they're competing for anything. If they're healthy, I think they will be in the rotation. And then Hunter Dobbins, a little bit of an injury question mark heading into the season, but if he's healthy, 100% ready for the start of the season, I think he'll be in the rotation as well. So from then, I think there is a competition. Whether it's, Richard Fitz, recently acquired in the Sonny Gray trade. Kyle Leahy is a guy that, Chaim Bloom has been hinting at starting for a while now, it seems like. And he's going to be competing for a spot out of spring, I'd imagine. He will be stretched out. And then Andre Palante, he's been in the rotation last 2 years. 2025 was a very disappointing year. I was expecting a lot more out of him, but he's still not an arm that I'm ready to give up on. I know a lot of Cardinals fans are done with Andre Palante. They don't want to see him pitch. They think he's a very annoying pitcher to watch, right? Doesn't strike anyone out. Doesn't throw too many strikes either. But
he's a John Mozeliak style starting pitcher. I mean, it's a lot of contact based stuff, and sure, the fans don't like that, especially with when a lot of it is being put in play and it ends up with a high opponent's batting average.
Yeah, but the thing about Andre Palante is prior to 2025, he was tremendous at limiting damage. Like I know a lot of people want to think that a pitcher can only control strikeouts, walks, and home runs, and I have always been anti that. A pitcher can, to some extent, control, the damage that they're allowing. And Andre Palante is a great, testament to that when he was having so much success. Last year, he just wasn't doing that. It wasn't a matter of him getting unlucky. He was getting barreled. He was getting destroyed. And, the numbers that he had on the season, like I wouldn't say he was getting unlucky, batted ball luck. He didn't pitch all that well. I expect him to rebound a little bit from 2025, but it's tough. Heading into the season, I mean, he had a positive 2024 season. We thought this guy was going to be a staple for years to come, and then he has that disappointing 2025 season. But I'm still holding out hope. He out of all the names that I mentioned, Richard Fitz, Kyle Leahy, and Palante, he's the guy that's the most seasoned out of those names, has the most opportunities in the rotation. And I think that might give him the edge, honestly, over a Richard Fitz and Kyle Leahy. But there's something about Kyle Leahy. I feel like the organization's itching to see what he's capable of doing as a starter. And, I'm all for it. I think he has the pitch mix for it. His sweeper, really, really good pitch, slider, changeup, fastball. He added a 2-seamer last year, which, helped him a lot against right-handed hitters. So there's a lot to like with the Kyle Leahy when it comes to, potentially working out as a starter. I know in the minor leagues, he was developed as a starter initially, and he had some rough years, starting in the Cardinals minor league system, but he's a much different pitcher now than what he was back then. So I'd be willing to give him a shot to see what that's like. Richard Fitz, I think Richard Fitz is another name to just throw around, right? Added in the Sonny Gray trade, throws the ball really hard. It's not the best fastball shape. It's cut ride. He has, a few breaking balls, sweeper, curveball, change. Like he's got a lot of pitches, much like a lot of these guys. And recently, Max Quirk for CardinalsProspects.com. He wrote a piece on how the Cardinals are acquiring pitchers with bad fastballs. And what he meant by that basically is they're targeting a lot of pitchers that are supinators, guys that naturally cut the ball, that aren't getting the true, ride run, four seam shape that, performs well in terms of, that's the kind of fastball that you covet in terms of, whiff rates. You want that pitch, up in the zone. But they're targeting guys that naturally cut the ball. And with that, they get to bigger breaking ball shapes, and they just have bigger arsenals. They throw fastballs, sinkers, sweepers, sliders. Like supinators can throw any pitch you want, basically, right? So that's just something else I wanted to add in there. But yeah, and Leahy fits that mold. Richard fits that mold. Palante, a lot of these guys, supinators, guys that naturally cut the ball.
And I think that, Kyle Leahy is a perfect example, or should I say, what they're trying to do with Kyle Leahy is a perfect example of the direction in which the Cardinals are trying to head, and that is maximizing their prospects. And what I love so much about what they've done this year in replenishing this, to be quite frank, something they didn't have the last 2 years, is the flexibility to not go into the spring and already basically have your mold of who is going to start for you. Last year, there were 6 guys competing for 5 spots. This year, it's probably 7. Who knows? Maybe by the time that we actually get to spring, it's more like 8 or 9. But I'm very intrigued by a guy like Richard Fitts, but I'm also not sold, and I think probably a lot of Cardinal Nation, maybe you as well, aren't sold that Richard Fitts is going to be ready to just start 30 games this year by opening day. But the Cardinals going out, getting depth allows for them to have the luxury to be able to allow him to continue working in AAA, to work with Matt Pierpont, or the new director of pitching. It's a little bit of a different story with Andre Palante, with Kyle Leahy, because they have pitched at the major league level. You have to imagine that Leahy's probably going to be in the bullpen. If he's not in the rotation, he's just too valuable. And it'll be interesting to see what exactly happens with Andre Palante if he's not in the starting rotation. We've seen bits and pieces where it looks good in the bullpen, times when it has looked really bad in the bullpen. So there's a lot of question as to what that number 5 spot is going to look like, but it's going to be really intriguing to keep an eye on it. I know I mentioned Quinn Matthews and potential options as well. We'll get to him in a little bit here, but what I want to go ahead and transition from this point is really just diving into, you talked about how, I think you said Fangraphs has them number 1, number 2. I think Baseball America has them right around the top 10 right now. ESPN does as well. The Cardinals farm system has taken major strides the last 2 years to becoming back to what it once was, as one of the best in baseball. And I have to imagine it's going to continue trending in that direction. But let me ask you this. We're going to dive into a couple of specific players that I'm excited about. I have to imagine that you are as well. But seeing what the Cardinals have done these last couple of years, how encouraging is it to you that they are going to eventually be able to turn this into a successful product at the major league level?
The first thing I just look at in terms of the system right now, Weatherholt, Rodriguez, and Baez, in terms of position player prospects in minor league baseball, it's hard to find a better trio across the minor leagues, for a single organization. Like that's a great start, having those 3 building blocks for the organization. And from there, I mean, the pitching depth in the organization, something that stands out to me. A lot of power arms, guys like, obviously, Liam Doyle, drafted first-round pick last year. Very excited to watch him. Tanner Franklin, last year draft as well, competitive balance round pick. You go down, guys like Chen-Wei Lin, triple digits fastball. Yeah. I'm excited to see him in 2026 fully healthy. Cade Winquist was an arm that I wish the Cardinals were able to keep, but you just see so many arms in the system, right? It's not just the guys at the top. Like I'm talking about, Andrew Dudkanich is someone that screams to me as a guy that has a lot of arm talent. Jacob Odell, not a name that a lot of Cardinal fans are going to know about, but the whole point of
it
this
goes on and on. It goes on and on through the levels. This is not just there's a guy or two maybe that's interesting in single A, and there's a guy also in triple A that could make his debut later in the year. This is something that has and is going to continue, I think, moving in this direction. There are names at every single level, I think, that are really intriguing, and that you look down the road, eventually you say, yeah, they could be legitimate contributors to the big league club.
Yeah. And the reason why I mentioned Winquist there is when have the Cardinals been in a spot where, another team would take a chance on someone that, they didn't even protect for the Rule 5 draft, they've got so many arms throughout the system, guys that other organizations, I mean, the Yankees, thought highly enough of Cade Winquist to put him on their roster. Like there's just a lot of talent throughout the system that, gets me excited. And I think that's really the strong, the big strength of the organization right now. I think it's just the pitching depth from the higher levels, triple A, double A, guys like Bryson Motts, Eshawn Henderson, right? Tekoa Roby, unfortunately, had the Tommy John surgery. Probably won't pitch in 2026, but he had a great year getting up to the AAA level. Cooper Jerpy had Tommy John as well, but I think we'll see him around mid-season at least. Tink Hens, who knows, but we know the kind of arm talent he has. And then, I mentioned some guys in the lower levels. Like it's incredible, like to see how much pitching talent is throughout the organization right now. And I hope they continue to add it, right? This is an arms race, and the Cardinals should continue to add as much pitching as possible. Most of these guys that I named probably won't make a difference at the next level. But if they're able to get some guys that are true, contributors, guys that are high-end talents that are going to provide a ton of value, right? That's what you want to see. You're going to have guys missing. These are prospects after all. These aren't sure things. We haven't seen them pitch at the major league level and succeed at that level yet. It's a very difficult thing. But the fact that they're adding talent, they're not going after just organization depth pieces like we've seen in the past, right? They're targeting guys that have legit arm talent. Another name that I didn't mention, Frank Ellisalt. The Cardinals acquired him in the Ryan Helsley trade. And he's another guy, arm talent for days, right? Mid-90s fastball, flat approach angle, bunch of secondaries. Like it's just they have a lot of pitching talent, and in the year 2026, you want to have a lot of pitching talent in your organization. So that's great to see.
Yeah, you hope that, if you have 20, 25 guys that you feel pretty good about, you're happy if a handful of them hit. That's kind of where you're at. So the more guys that you feel good about in the minor leagues, the better a situation you're putting yourself in to have a couple more lottery tickets. So we'll have to wait and see what exactly happens for some of these guys, and who knows, maybe a couple of them we get to see this year in the 2026 season. The first person that you mentioned was Joshua Baez, who's an outfielder that last year was in Springfield AA. And just to give a quick backstory for those that do not know, Baez was drafted in the second round of the 2021 Major League Draft by the Cardinals and was very, very highly regarded early on in his minor league career. However, it took some time to adjust to the semi-professional level or the young levels of the professional level. And he kind of got discarded. He kind of got forgotten about, it feels like, by a lot of the prospect gurus out there. But he's been able to put some things together in the last year and a half, to where you look at what he did in 2025 in both high A and double A. All of a sudden, people are really talking about him and are extremely excited about what he could potentially be. So this is where I leave it to you, the prospect expert, to tell me, why should people be excited about Joshua Baez? And then to follow up with that, what makes you think that a guy that it took so long to get to this level is going to be able to continue performing effectively once he gets to even higher levels?
Yeah, Baez's ascent didn't come from nowhere, right? He was placed on the development list at the end of the 2024 season, and was just working with the hitting coaches down in Florida, and they helped to just refine that swing, quieted his hands, bat path got shorter, and he went from a hitter that was so pull happy to more of a complete hitter. He's not afraid to go the opposite field, and when you have the kind of raw power that a Joshua Baez has, you don't need to pull the ball all the time, right? If you hit the ball to right center, like you're going to get some power production out of there. So I think that was the biggest thing for him, tweaking that swing, and he cut his strikeout rate from 35.5% in 2024 to 20.6 last year. So that's like less than that. That's like pretty much half what he had in 2024. I mean, that's remarkable. Dropping 14 percentage points, 145 WRC plus. When he went over to AA, I wondered if he was going to be able to carry that same level of success, and he did such a great job. And beyond just the power that he has, I mean, this is an aggressive base runner, a guy that's going to steal a lot of bags, and has a big arm too that is going to work well in right field. So, I mean, Baez is a guy that's always had all the tools. This is a former second-round pick out of high school. In the year the Cardinals drafted Michael McGreevy, and from that point, I was always enamored by Joshua Baez. When you have a guy that has all these tools, but he wasn't able to put it all together until 2025. And when you have prospects like a Baez that have tools, but have some glaring issues as well, it might take a little bit of time to fully develop. And I was very encouraged by the season that he had in 2025, and I do think this is a guy that's if he's not inside of a top 100 prospect list, I think he's very close to that. I think he's one of the top 150 prospects in the game right now. I think should be consensus. And it was great to watch him break out after struggling a little bit in 2024, especially. He's just a great kid, and I'm really excited to watch him in AAA. We're gonna have StatCast data to look at. I'm sure I'm gonna be posting every time he hits a home run, the exit velocity and the distance. Like very, very excited to watch Joshua Baez in 2026, and maybe there's a debut in there by the end of the year. I know the Cardinals could use an outfielder. Haven't been getting a ton of production out of Jordan Walker. We'll see what that's like in 2026. Seems like he's going to be given another opportunity to start, and hopefully he can break through. But there's an opportunity. There's going to be opportunities for an outfielder to get some time. If Victor Scott doesn't show improvements in his offense, he struggled a lot at the end of the 2025 season. Lars Nootbaar could be a trade piece by midseason. So I think Baez is a guy that I think all Cardinals fans should have their eyes on. Very excited about him. He's got a chance to be something very special. And can't wait to watch what he's able to do at the major league level.
I want to jump to the next prospect here. Got a couple more that I want to get through here, and we'll continue with Cardinals left-handed pitcher Quinn Matthews, who at one point was the number 2 prospect in the system, has dropped down just with the rising up of several names like Reinel Rodriguez, Leo Bernal, the drafting of Liam Doyle. And mixed with perhaps a little bit of a drop-off in 2025 for Mathews, who dealt with some injuries at times throughout the year, and also had a little bit of just an adjustment issue at the AAA level. Now, he smoothed it out to end the season, but I'm curious. We've seen 2 seasons of Quinn Matthews. One was just razor speed, where everyone, I think, was ready for him to hit the majors last year, and then a 2025 year where everyone had to say slow down. So what is the proper way to evaluate where Quinn Matthews is right now? How close is he to hitting the major league level?
I think he needs some time. 2025 in a lot of ways was a weird year for him. Started the season, had a couple starts, and then dealt with a shoulder issue that felt like it lingered for a while. He didn't get his velocity back till the final couple months of the season, and even then, I mean, it was still a little bit down from what it was in 2024. So and he's still got to get used to the major league ball. I think that's something he's talked about. His command at the AAA level has been a lot worse than what it had been at prior levels. So that's something I'll be watching for Quinn Matthews, getting that walk rate down to a respectable level. I think he did a great job at inducing whiff with his slider, changeup. I was very encouraged by those 2 pitches. Fastball wasn't the best at AAA, but again, this is more of a pitchability arm. I think that I don't think fans should expect him to be more than like a mid-rotation type of arm. But I do think if he's able to get the command back to what it was, in 2024, I think we're looking at a guy that could be a dependable piece in the rotation for the Cardinals. So I think there's still a little bit of polish left. I think he needs to be in AAA to start the season, and just going to be watching to see if he's able to get that command back to what it was in 2024, and also velocity. I was encouraged by the end of the year, him getting back to 93, 94 range, but I think it's going to be key for him having velocity on his fastball and working his secondary pitches. I think his slider is one of the more underrated pitches in the organization. All the spotlight goes on his changeup, and that's another great pitch. But I think he's got 2 very, very impressive secondaries. And I think Mathews is a arm that fans should be, watching at AAA. He's close to the big leagues. And while I don't think he's going to compete for a spot out of spring, I would not be shocked to see him in the rotation at some point in 2026.
And then the final, which this is a little bit of a trick thing here, because it is technically the final, but it's a group of players that I want to hit on, because the Cardinals have 3 catching prospects that are in the top 6 in their system according to the MLB pipeline. And I'm just absolutely fascinated by how exactly Chaim Bloom is going to handle this situation. Fortunately, all 3 of them play at different levels. You had Jimmy Crooks get a taste of the majors at the end of 2025. You have Leo Bernal, who was pretty sharp in AA last year. You have to imagine that a move at some point to AAA, perhaps the start of the season, is going to be coming. And then you have Raynel Rodriguez, who everyone is salivating about in Major League Baseball, including yourself, I'm assuming. Serious talent with the bat for an 18-year-old. Put up numbers last year that you saw rivaled with very few 18-year-olds. That there is great reason to be excited. But I'm very intrigued by how exactly they're going to handle this situation. You know that they're going to give Ivan Herrera a pretty good chunk of time behind the plate at the major league level in 2026. And then you have Pedro Pages, who has worked very well with starting pitching. I can't imagine he has a boatload of trade value. And you're going to have a lot of young starting pitchers where I think having a guy like him is going to benefit. It kind of leaves you in this weird in-between spot with Jimmy Crooks, where, like I said, you have Bernal coming potentially to the AAA level. Is Crooks a major leaguer yet? Is he still going to be back and forth? Do you see how it can all of a sudden become very interesting? I'm curious as to your thoughts on how exactly the Cardinals should navigate this trio of catching prospects they have as they continue to move forward in their development.
Yeah, Herrera being a catcher complicates things for sure. I think Pedro Pages, as it stands right now, he's going to be on the team, right? And I'm sure even with Herrera catching um, or being the starting catcher of the team, I think Pedro Pages is going to get plenty of work behind the dish too. I don't expect them to carry a third catcher. I think that's a little unorthodox. So with that, I think Jimmy Crooks would be back at AAA, but Bernal's ready for the AAA level too. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that. Maybe both of those guys are, um, you know, catching every other day. I don't know what they're going to do.
I mean,
Honestly,
it feels like at some point, it would be a different story if you're talking about two guys that are in A ball, but you're not. You're talking about two guys that are vouching for AAA time, and I have to imagine that there is some sort of interest in the catching talent that the Cardinals have. I wonder if at some point we're going to see. This is just total speculation, but I wonder if we're going to have to see them try and move someone or maybe package someone up with another player in order to get maybe a little bit of a better return or something. I just don't know how they can possibly keep Jimmy Crooks and Leo Bernal in AAA next year and go back and forth between the two.
yeah, it's definitely getting to that crunch time. I've always thought that they should keep all the talent, but I mean at this point you're looking at a situation where you have two guys that are the top 10 prospects in the organization, both of whom are ready for the AAA level. In Jimmy Crook's case, he played the whole year, played some time at the major league level too. And then Bernal had a great year, didn't finish strong at the AA level, but I still think he's ready for AAA, especially defensively. I think, he just won the minor league gold glove. I think the kid's got incredible talent behind the dish. And yeah, like he's got great pop times, very accurate to second base. And I think he's the best. He's the best thrower out of that catcher position in quite some time in the Cardinals organization. So I'd like to see Bernal in AAA. I'd like to see Jimmy Crooks in AAA, but I don't know what they're going to do.
All of a sudden it becomes very interesting, and that's going to be something to keep an eye on. I agree. You want to try and keep as much talent as possible. I would just be curious as to what the interest would be in either of those two options if they're not going to be, if Crooks is not going to be at the major league level. I'm putting my take down that I think that Jimmy Crooks gets traded at some point. I just don't know what the other option would be, and I think out of the three, he's probably the one that they're the lowest on. And if they have those other two guys at the major league level catching, then there's just no fit for him really. But we'll have to wait and see what exactly happens. There is still a lot of offseason left, and still several St. Louis Cardinals that we expect to be traded before the start of the 2026 season. Okay, I've saved the juiciest piece for last because I think right now in Cardinal land, it is the most interesting headline of what do they do with Brendan Donovan. I think everyone knows that the Cardinals are shopping him and that it makes sense to maximize on the value in which you could get for a return right now. We've seen several teams involved in, or at least interested, including, we've heard Tampa Bay. We've even heard at one point Boston thrown out, Cleveland. But the most two notable being San Francisco and then Seattle, the one we're hearing the most kind of back and forth, names being tossed out there as well. So, I'm not expecting the world here, but I would be curious, being that you are the minor league guy, if there is anyone from any of those teams that intrigues you as if the Cardinals were to trade with this or that team, who would be some names that fans should be keeping eyes out for?
I think one name fans should definitely pay attention to is Jurrangelo Cincy, the Mariners switch pitcher. He was a first-round pick in 2024. And I remember that draft year. Cincy was a guy that I was very interested in. we're talking about a guy mid-90s fastball, good carry. I think the secondary arsenal isn't fully developed yet. I think that we could see a little bit sharper of a slider. I think the changeup does lack a little bit of feel at the moment. So, despite being a guy that was a college arm in 2024, I think there's still some, things to iron out with the Cincy. But when you're talking about a guy that has a quality fastball, he had a successful year in 2025 in the Mariners organization, is a switch pitcher, but a lot better from the right side. I think, him being a switch pitcher is more of a gimmick to me than an actual thing that maybe he could sparingly use the left arm, but I think at that point, is it even worth it? But definitely way more talented from the right side. And
so you don't think that the switch pitcher adds necessarily to what makes him a better prospect? Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit, but he doesn't command the ball well there.
Okay.
From the left side. He's lower 90s sinker slider as opposed to, power right-handed pitcher, strikeout kind of stuff. So maybe there's a little bit of use in there if he can find better command from the left side against left-handed bats that really struggle in those situations. But I think more so we're looking at a right-handed arm. He's really the one name that jumps off the page to me. And he's a guy that Katie Woo has mentioned as someone that has been in talks. The Mariners seem like they would be okay to move him in a Brendan Donovan trade. I don't know if he'd be a frontline piece in a trade, but even if he is, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I think he's a quality arm, former first-round pick, and a guy that I would be excited to add to the Cardinals farm system for sure.
There you have it. You got your name, a name that certainly has been shared a little bit among some of these rumors as to who could be potentially a return or a part of a return for Brendan Donovan if the Cardinals were to trade with the Seattle Mariners. But you get a little bit more than just the name, and that's exactly what I was hoping for. Kareem Haq, always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. Be sure to go and follow him on X at Kareem SSN. Go and follow and listen to the Birds on the Farm podcast. Check out cardinalsprospects.com. Is there anything that I missed?
That's it. Really
there it
appreciate
is.
The shout outs.
There it is. Kareem, we appreciate the time, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Thanks, Ethan.
That was Kareem Haq, as mentioned, the host of the Birds on the Farm podcast, editor of cardinalsprospects.com, on X at Kareem SSN. Listen, the year is just getting started. The offseason, I would say we're probably hitting the midway point, or about. There's a lot that is still expected to happen. The Cardinals still have to figure out a way to trade Nolan Arenado. The Brendan Donovan trade talks continue to be very interesting news. Do they trade anyone else? What is this team going to look like come spring training? There's a lot of conversation to be had, and this is the spot to be sure that you are checking it all out, whether it be on the Loose Sports Talk specifically or on STL Sports Central, where we have plenty of names, plenty of big names in St. Louis sports media, plenty of different topics, post-game coverage for the Cardinals, the Blues, the Battlehawks, St. Louis City SC, the Billikens, Mizzou, University of Illinois. It goes on and on and on. This is the spot to check it all out. We appreciate you guys joining us for episode 93. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X at Loose Sports Talk _. And we're going to be doing some giveaways here in 2026 as well. So be sure to stay tuned in for that. But for now, episode number 93. That's a wrap.